Hello, and welcome to Assignment 3 Text in Action. For this assignment, I'm going to be talking about the basic description, and then I'm going to go over the following requirements that you see in this bulleted list that you should have in your essay before you turn it in. So this is a pretty straightforward assignment. You're going to have to make sure that everything's MLA formatted, so that means name, last name, and page number up at the top right hand corner. And you want to make sure that you follow other elements of MLA formatting as well. Then you're going to want to make sure that you have 3 to 4 pages as your length for this paper. And when we say 3 pages, we mean all the way to the bottom of the 3rd page, not just half of a 3rd page. It's 2.5 pages. So make sure you have at least 3 pages for this assignment. So for the text in action assignment, you're going to actually have an opportunity to have your first formal writing assignment, which means you're going to be writing in 3rd person. So for your first assignment, the reflection, you wrote from 1st person, which was I. This is 3rd person, which means from we and they perspective. So make sure that you use that as you write moving forward, and unless we ask otherwise. So for this assignment, you're going to write an essay in which you analyze how texts, specifically nickel and dimed, affects audiences. I want you to think about this as an analysis of the behind-the-scenes exploration of our author's rhetorical choices. And when I say rhetorical choices, I want you to think about some of the items that are mentioned this week, as far as the rhetorical triangle, which is in the handout section of the weekly activities for this week. And also, you want to be looking at the 2 lectures that we have posted as well. The video lectures for this week focus on ethos, pathos, and logos. So you're going to be thinking about ethos, pathos, and logos, and how those apply to the book Nickel and Dimed, and how that affects audiences, or the intended audience for the book, and possibly other audiences that she could have reached as well. So these should include some of the following: the analysis of tone, sources, visual elements, rhetorical appeals, organization, and genre. And by rhetorical appeals, it just means the same thing as using ethos, pathos, and logos. The terms rhetorical tools, rhetorical appeals are used interchangeably. And I want you to remember that ethos is an ethical appeal, pathos is an emotional appeal, and logos is a logical appeal. So remember that logos, or a logical appeal, uses statistics as a way to persuade an audience. Ethos, or emotional appeal, uses, what's that? That's right, emotions to persuade an audience. An example would be if you wanted to make everyone in the room upset, you might scream fire into a crowded theater. By the way, I do not endorse doing that, so please don't go and scream fire into a crowded theater. But if you did that, everyone would panic. You would be inducing or using a pathological or pathos appeal, and that would be appealing to the emotions of the people in the theater. The other appeal is ethos, or ethical appeal. An ethical appeal is an appeal to the audience's sense of ethics that they have. It's also a good way to use ethos to persuade an audience is to use someone else's ethical appeal to persuade others. For instance, if I'm advertising a new type of shoe that I insist is going to be this awesome tool for making you a really great basketball player. It's going to make you like 25% more accurate at shooting 3-point shots. Uh, you probably might not believe just me, especially if you see me play basketball. But if I had an endorsement from Michael Jordan saying this, um, or King James himself, uh, then that would be an ethical appeal because they are actual basketball players who have wonderful game playing abilities. So you would probably, I don't know, you might actually trust their recommendation for what shoes to use or where to play basketball and what could help your jump shot or help your 3-point shot, whereas you might not believe me so much. So I'm using the ethical appeal of their background or their specialty. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about that. You also want to make sure you make good use of organization and genre when doing your analysis. So I mentioned that I was going to describe the assignment. So it's a text in action, and you're going to be analyzing the action and analyzing the behind-the-scenes rhetorical choices of Barbara Einrich. But I also want to make sure that you use or make sure that your paper contains all of the following. I'll go over these individually. So first, you want to make sure that you clearly identify the audience, purpose, and the message of Nickel and Dimed. So who's the audience? What's the purpose of Nickel and Dimed? What's the message? Are there multiple messages that you think that Barbara Einrich wants us to take away from the book? Or is there just one main one? Identify and analyze the rhetorical appeals being used. What strategies are used to influence the attitudes, actions, or beliefs of the intended audience? And I just talked about that, the rhetorical appeals, ethos, pathos, and logos. I gave you the example of ethos where you can appeal to the audience's sense of ethics, or you can use a sense of ethics to persuade them, such as with the basketball players and the shoes. Then you have pathos with an emotional appeal and logos with a logical appeal. A good logical appeal is, say for instance, you're trying to talk someone into joining a master's degree program and they already have their bachelor's degree. You really want them to join, you think they could be a good member of the group, and your way of getting them to join might be to tell them the statistics of how much more money someone with a master's degree might make over time. That's a logical appeal. So you also make sure that you address all three of those appeals, even if you don't think they all are there. So if you think perhaps the book doesn't use logos, there aren't any statistics or facts used to back up what's going on, say so and explain why. Because as we mentioned here, that could be a key point in your assessment. You also want to talk about how the passage of time affected the text's persuasiveness, and has it altered its original effects. Include a thesis statement that sums up your assessment of the argument's overall effectiveness. Note, your thesis statement should answer the following questions with specific examples from the visual or written text. In this case, we'd have written. And that is the argument effective? Why or why not? And last but not least, you want to make sure that you underline your thesis statement before you turn in the assignment. Points will be deducted if you do not underline your thesis statement. That sounds kind of like a really arbitrary thing, but if you find yourself unable to underline your thesis statement, that's a problem. That means either you don't have one or you can't identify it. And if you don't have one or you can't identify it yourself, it's going to be difficult for Ms. Costa or I to do that as well. So be aware of that. So make sure you underline your thesis statement before turning in this assignment. As always, if you have any questions, concerning this assignment, let us know. I'm more than happy to help. And I wish you the best of luck on this assignment. Make sure you get started sooner rather than later. Also, keep in mind you're balancing this assignment as well as the annotated bibliography that's due later on this semester. So you're getting assignment 3 now, but I want you to check after you listen to this recording. I want you to check for the due date. Look at the schedule. Find out what the due date is. Look at the due date for the annotated bibliography. Realize that you're balancing both of these. And with that said, best of luck and happy writing.